Hello, it's John Heaton, and today I'm going to try and rank the George Harrison Beatles songs in my order of preference. And it's only, I have to stress it again, it's only my opinion. I'm sure you're going to disagree with a lot of my choices and a lot of my rankings. But this is just my personal listing, and it's the songs nearer the top are the ones I tend to listen to the most. So that's why I put them nearer the top, and the opposite would go for the ones nearer the bottom. But having said that, there are only 22 tracks to choose from, and I don't dislike any of them. It's just I have slightly less love for the ones nearer the bottom than the ones nearer the top, okay? So that was an important caveat. And before we get to the songs written by George, there are 5 songs where George is singing lead vocal on a song not written by him, and I quickly had a look at those 5, and I've ranked them 6, sorry. In 6th place, Everybody's Trying to Be My Baby from Beatles for Sale, which I've never really cared for a lot. Number 5, the track from Hard Day's Night, I'm Happy Just to Dance With You, which I think is a slightly by numbers Lennon-McCartney tune sung by George. Number 4, I've got Roll Over Beethoven from With the Beatles, a good version of the Chuck Berry song there. Number 3, the cover version of Devil in Her Heart, again from With the Beatles, very enjoyable. Number 2, I've got the cover of Chains, sung by George from Please Please Me. And number 1, by quite a distance for me, is the Lennon-McCartney song from Please Please Me, Do You Want to Know a Secret, which is well sung by George, very much suiting his vocal range. So that was the songs not written by him but sung by him. Then we've got 4 songs which I've classed as missed opportunities, which were either attempted by the Beatles or should have been attempted, and the 4 I've got were Not Guilty, which was attempted for the White Album and didn't make the cut, which turned up on his self-titled album 11 years later. Dehradun is a track written in India, which you hear a little bit of on Anthology. And again, I suppose it could have been considered for the White Album, although it wasn't demoed at Isha. And number 8, Sour Milk Sea. Again, another one of those songs from the kind of Maharishi period, but for some odd reason George gave it to Jackie Lomax, and on Jackie Lomax's version you can hear, apart from the vocals, you can hear what the Beatles would have done to it, because it's got no less than 3 Beatles on it, George, Paul and Ringo, and if you'd had George singing it would have been a fully fledged Beatles song, but as it is we've got Jackie Lomax singing, and it's still a great version, but would have preferred it to been on the White Album, to be perfectly honest with you, or a B-side. And then, of course, at the top, we've got All Things Must Pass, which was famously tried in the Let It Be sessions, and they couldn't quite conjure up enough enthusiasm to finish it off, and then it was finished off in glorious fashion for the album of that name, with Phil Spector lending a hand. So that was the little preambles. With that out of the way, I'm going to go straight to the rankings, starting at the bottom. Number 22, we've got the George track from Magical Mystery Tour, Blue Jay Way. I know a lot of you out there love this track, and it's a good psychedelic number. It's just it goes on a little too long for my liking, and it hasn't got much of a melody, but it kind of fits the mood of Magical Mystery Tour. And if you watch the film, if you can call it a film, the TV special, there's quite a nice sequence with George sitting cross-legged, writing chalk on the ground during this song. So it's quite effective in that movie. Number 21, we've got the B-side of Lady Madonna, The Inner Light, another Indian influenced tune, and none of the other Beatles feature on here. Maybe they're on backing vocals, I can't quite remember, but it's basically George singing with a load of Indian musicians playing, and apparently he even borrowed the words from a famous Indian poem. So yeah, it is a Beatles track, but it's not a particularly authentic Beatles track for me. It's more like a George solo effort, and hence it's pretty low on my list. And the same would almost go for Love You Too from Revolver, which is at number 20, because it's quite interesting, and it's kind of in the spirit of the, experimentation of the Revolver album. But again, none of the other Beatles are featuring instrumentally anyway. Maybe they're on helping out with the harmony vocals, but it's basically George Harrison singing the lead to the accompaniment of some Indian musicians. So that's why it's low on my list, because I don't think it's a sort of tour de force Beatles number. Number 19, I've got his debut from With the Beatles. First song he'd attempted to write, Don't Bother Me, which is a little bit miserable in its lyric, like telling people to go away, don't bother me. And this would be a kind of character trait from George over the years, kind of being a little bit fed up with the fame aspect and being chased around and having to act as a mop top when he didn't want to. So it's not a very likeable song, but it rocks along quite nicely. There's nothing too wrong with it. Number 18, I've got You Like Me Too Much from Help. I think it's got a nice tune. I just don't think the words are particularly sophisticated. Well, none of the Beatles' words were very sophisticated during this period. They were just beginning to become so. And this song is particularly banal lyrically. And it's a little bit annoying, to be perfectly honest with you. I'm being a bit of a harsh critic here. Number 17, I've got the track from Revolver. I won't keep on showing you the album covers. We'll come to the Revolver album later, but I've got the track I Want to Tell You from side 2, which I think is perfectly decent enough. It just doesn't quite match the stupendous standards that the rest of the album reaches, with the exception of Love You Too, which was lower down my list. It's a decent enough George song. It was performed live by him on the Japan tour, and it's just nothing very outstanding about it for me. Number 16, we've got from the Yellow Submarine, we've got It's All Too Much, which is one of 2 tracks on that album, and again, a nice psychedelic number. I know a lot of you, including friends of mine out there, love this track. Crank It Up Loud. Very nice philosophical words. All the world's a birthday cake, so take a piece but not too much, etc. Get me home for tea. Nice spirit behind it. Again, a little bit maybe on the long side and a little bit cacophonous sound-wise, but I'm being a harsh critic here. Apologies for that. Number 15, we've got one or 2 tracks from George from Rubber Soul. We've got Think For Yourself, which has got wonderful fuzz bass from Paul McCartney and nice vocal harmonies from John and Paul, and it's a very enjoyable song. And then we're into the top 14 here with Within You, Without You from Pepper, with George's contribution to Pepper, which when I first got into Pepper I didn't care for, and then it's grown on me over the years. It's very nice words, very philosophical words, and it kind of fits on the album, even though at first when I was a 14-year-old I didn't think it fitted at all, and it is a little bit incongruous versus the other songs on the album, but you know, I'm glad it's on there and it's reasonably high on my list. 14. Number 13, we've got the other track from Help, I Need You. Very tuneful George song. Nothing complicated about it, but its beauty is in its simplicity and a nice tune with heartfelt lyrics. Number 12, we've got the first selection from the White Album. This is my Russian copy. And I've chosen Piggies, which is a pretty bitter song about the establishment and, you know, all the politicians in their starched white shirts. What they need is a damn good whacking, was a line his mother gave to him. And I think this is a pretty enjoyable song and very nice string section and harpsichord play by Chris Thomas, I believe. And then we've got number 11, the second selection from Rubber Soul, If I Needed Someone. Glorious, I think it's Rickenbacker guitar George is playing. It kind of influenced what the Byrds were doing around about this time with that style, and on the tracks like Mr. Tambourine Man, for example. And just very trademark harmonies from John and Paul, just joining George throughout the song on a regular basis. Very, very nice. Number 10, we've got a track from Yellow Submarine. This is my Argentinian copy. Submarino Amarillo, and I've chosen It's Only a Northern Song, which, if you can believe it, was actually presented as George's contribution to Pepper and was soundly rejected by George Martin, saying, go away, you can do something better. Which George probably was a bit upset by, although he did come back Within You, Within You, Without You. But I think this is a lovely song and very psychedelic and quite bitter words, because Northern Songs controlled the copyright on all of the Beatles songs up until this point. And George was basically saying, doesn't really matter what chords I play or words I say, or if my hair is brown, because it's only a northern song. I think it's a wonderful song, and play it loud. very psychedelic arrangement. Number 9, we've got For You Blue from Let It Be. It's one of 2 tracks from George, nothing particularly complicated about it. It's kind of 12-bar boogie, but it's infectious in its tune, and it's lovely singing from George, lovely guitar solos from John, 2 of them on this song, or at least one is Get Back, where he plays 2 solos, of course. But yeah, and you can see this in the film, they're really enjoying it. They really get their rocks off on this number. Number 8, we've got another track from the White Album, Savoy Truffle, lovely horn arrangement. I think Chris Thomas came up with that along with George Martin, and great production, great guitar solo, great singing. Basically, he got these words from a box of chocolates called Good News, I think was the name of the box of chocolates, and it had all kinds of chocolates in it, like cream tangerine, Montélimar, ginger sling with a pineapple heart. So most of those words were borrowed from a box of chocolates, which Eric Clapton used to devour on a regular basis. He had a very sweet tooth, apparently. That's the side story to that song. Number 7, we've got another track from the White Album, Long, 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 the closer to side 3, just a gorgeous ballad and very atmospheric singing, and not sure if he's singing to his companion or to the Lord, but either way it works very well, and a nice climax in the chorus, and just a perfect end to side 3. The thing about the White Album is it's so well sequenced. The 30 tracks just follow on from each other. And you've got this track, if I'm recalling it rightly, follows the cacophonous, raucous sound of Helter Skelter. And then you just get this lovely song to close out the side, and it just works perfectly. Number 6, we've got a track from the Hey Jude album in the US, and also the B-side of the Ballad of John and Yoko in the UK, Old Brown Shoe, which was also tried out in the Let It Be sessions a few months earlier, and it's just a storming song. There's something a little bit muddy about the production, so I'm looking forward to that song being remastered one of these days. But great bass playing, and I always used to think it was Paul playing that bass, but apparently George in an interview in '87 said it was him going mad on the bass on that song, which I found quite interesting. It's a great song. Number 5, I've got the other track of his from Let It Be, I Me Mine, which was he talks about this at length in his book, I Me Mine, being a song about ego and people being obsessed with their own self and their own material possessions, and he's kind of saying you need to look beyond that and get a bit more spiritual. That's the kind of message, and it's very heartfelt. It's a very short song. In fact, when the Beatles recorded it on January the 3rd, 1970, it was only 1.5 minutes long. And Spector elongated it by 1 minute by including another verse and chorus, and then added a bunch of strings and horns and stuff, which is very effective. So that was number 5, love it. Number 4, we've got, if I can just, here we go, the opening track from Revolver, Taxman. Absolutely brilliant track, and if it's not the best track on the album, that's only because it's up against some very stiff competition, such as For No One and Eleanor Rigby and Here, There and Everywhere and Tomorrow Never Knows. I mean, absolute abundance of riches on Revolver, but what an opener, and just a perfect opener. Okay, the words are a little bit kind of bitter against the taxman, but it's still relevant today, although less relevant because the taxman doesn't take quite so much percentage of your income as he used to in the 60s. If you were at all rich in the 60s, they would be taking 98% of your income away in tax, and I know some of you out there think that's a good thing, and we won't get into a political discussion, but that was the inspiration behind that song, and of course in the chorus you've got them referring to Mr. Wilson and Mr. Heath, who respectively were the Prime Minister of the UK and the leader of the opposition at the time, Harold Wilson, Edward Heath. Number 3, we're into the top 3, and it's difficult to place these in order, but I've gone for the track Something at number 3. Beautiful ballad from George, and a lot of people were taken by surprise because they didn't really realise that George was such a major songwriter until Abbey Road. Well, of course they should have done, because the White Album was out the year before and had 4 pretty damn good tracks on that album, and there were several good tracks such as Taxman on earlier albums. So it shouldn't really have come as too much of a surprise, but having said that, For this Abbey Road album to contain this song and another of George's, which were no less than probably the highlights of the entire album, was quite an achievement. When you're up against Lennon and McCartney, that's quite an achievement. So that's a brilliant song. I can't think of enough words to describe how beautiful the melody is and how well it's sung and played by all four Beatles. I think John was on it. Well, certainly Paul's playing brilliant bass and Ringo's playing brilliant drumming. Number two, While My Guitar Gently Weeps, I've gone for from the White Album, and Eric Clapton's guesting on guitar here, and it's just, I just don't have enough superlatives to talk about this song. I think it's absolutely wonderful. Not quite sure what the words mean. The floor needs sweeping and lines like that. But having said that, they work in the context of the song, and it's brilliantly played by the four Beatles. And I've read various accounts that maybe John is playing that chugging bass line. Paul's certainly playing the piano intro at the beginning. And as I said, Eric's on hand to do the lead guitar parts. And it just sounds wonderful. I mean, the whole of the White Album is wonderful, but that is if one has to pick out a particular highlight, particularly on side one, that would be a big highlight. So all the way at number two, so you can probably guess what my number one is. We're back to Abbey Road, and it's Here Comes the Sun, the joyous ode to a springtime day in the UK when George sagged off school, as he called it. They were due to attend a business meeting, and he said, stuff that, I'm going to go to Eric Clapton's garden and just walk around with my guitar. And that inspired him to write Here Comes the Sun. And then he brought it into the other Beatles, and they do a wonderful version. Ringo was a bit unsure what kind of time signature it was in, because it's in some kind of weird time signature, but he nails the drum part masterfully, and Paul is singing beautiful harmony vocals and playing a brilliant bass line as usual. It's just I think those three, I'm not even sure if John was on that track again, but certainly on the backing track on the archive edition of Abbey Road, it's just the three of them, I think, and just wonderful. Anyway, this was my ranking of George Harrison Beatles songs. Not a bad song on there, but the ones nearer the top are my particular favourites, and I don't expect you to agree, and that's fine, all well and healthy if you don't. So thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.